Imagine Keanu Reeves in a courtroom. His black leather jacket, his calm but determined gaze, a real estate mogul standing up to a mother to reclaim her stolen home. As the salty winds of Monterey County swirl around the building, Keanu gives voice to Clara Lopez's quest for justice. What if I told you that this moment is not just a fantasy, but a true saga of justice, shaped by one man's conscience and mingled with the tears of a family? Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let me tell you how one man saved a family's home and silenced a court of law. This story will warm your heart and show you what one man's determination can change. Chapter 1: The Courtroom. The Monterey County Courtroom was buzzing with a flood of people in the early morning hours. Ever since the doors swung open, the wooden benches had filled up completely, with latecomers standing shoulder to shoulder, whispering about the moment unfolding. Outside, the salty Monterey breeze swirled around the building while news vans lined the street, their satellite dishes pointed skyward. Reporters clutched their microphones. A few curious onlookers pressed their faces to the windows, trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening. Inside, a handful of people discreetly raised their phones, attempting to record the scene because this was no ordinary case. At the plaintiff's table stood Keanu Reeves, a crisp black leather jacket fitted perfectly over his shoulders, simple yet stylish boots gleaming faintly against the floor. His hair was slightly tousled, his hazel eyes scanning the room, calm, but with a quiet determination. Across from him sat real estate mogul Richard Langston and his attorney, Peter Grayson. Langston, in a sharp gray suit, was the picture of wealth and arrogance, his tie pin glinting as an expensive flourish. Grayson, with his thin-framed glasses and self-assured smirk, radiated the confidence of a seasoned big-case lawyer. When Judge Margaret Ellis entered, the room rose to its feet. In her 50s, with short gray hair and a stern gaze, she exuded authority, clutching a thick file. Her robe swayed slightly as she approached the bench. She banged her gavel once, a sharp crack cutting through the air. "Order," she commanded, her voice echoing across the courtroom, silencing the crowd. She sat, adjusted her glasses, and flipped through her papers, her eyes briefly landing on Keanu. She paused for a moment. She recognized this man from somewhere. But now he was here in her courtroom. "Mr. Reeves," she said, her tone serious, "you claim to represent Clara Lopez as the plaintiff. Is that correct?" Keanu gave a slight nod. "Yes, Your Honor," he replied, his voice low but clear, rippling through the room like a wave. Laughter erupted in the courtroom. People on the benches exchanged glances, some chuckling mockingly. A man whispered to his friend, "What's this now?" Grayson leaned forward, twirling his pen with a faint smirk. In the back, a journalist muttered, "This is going viral," adjusting their phone for a better angle. But Keanu didn't flinch. Hands resting on the table, hazel eyes locked on the judge. He stood like a rock amidst the laughter. Judge Ellis raised an eyebrow, her voice tinged with both surprise and a hint of sarcasm. "Mr. Reeves, you're not a lawyer. This is a courtroom. Law is serious business. Why didn't you hire an attorney?" The laughter grew louder. A woman giggled. "John Wick in court?" Another man shrugged. "Are we on a movie set?" Langston folded his arms, a smug look on his face, as if this were some kind of joke. Grayson turned to the judge. "Your Honor, perhaps Mr. Reeves thinks he's rehearsing a scene," he said, his tone smooth but biting. The room roared. Someone shouted, "Is Neo back?" and the crowd buzzed with energy. But Keanu waited. The laughter rose like a wave and then slowly ebbed, the room falling silent as everyone wondered what he'd do next. He took a deep breath and began speaking in that calm, resonant voice. "Your Honor, I'm not a lawyer. That's true. But I had to be here. For 6 months, in my Carmel home, with a coffee cup in hand under a lamp's light, I pored over documents night and day. Deeds, laws, court rulings. I read every line. The man sitting across from me stole Clara Lopez's home, a mother's, a son's sanctuary. I wrote warnings, sent letters. He tore them up. I made calls. He hung up. I saw Clara's tears, heard her son's fear. Someone had to speak. I'm that someone. This isn't a game. It's justice. I'm here for Clara. The room went still, breaths held, pens paused, phones lowered. Judge Ellis's eyes narrowed. The initial amusement gave way to surprise, her lips pressing into a thin line. Grayson's smirk froze, his pen slipping from his fingers and clattering onto the table, a small sound echoing in the silence. Langston's face tightened, his arms uncrossing as he leaned forward. Something was going wrong. Keanu sat down, hands clasped on the table, his expression blank, but his hazel eyes burned with resolve. The audience exchanged looks, silently asking the same question. Why him? Where are the lawyers? In the back, a journalist scribbled furiously, Keanu Reeves silences courtroom, but no one knew yet. This was just the beginning. 6 months ago, Keanu wandered through a Carmel street market, coffee in hand, his clean leather jacket swaying in the breeze. Amid the stalls, a woman caught his eye, Clara Lopez, holding a box, her gaze fixed on the ground. Beside her, a little boy. Sam clung to her arm, asking, "Where's our house?" Keanu stopped, set his coffee on a table, and approached her. "Did you lose something?" he asked, his voice soft but curious. Clara looked up. "We lost our home," she said, her voice trembling. Keanu's hazel eyes narrowed. Something pulled him. Courtroom continued. Judge Ellis cleared her throat, her tone more measured now. "Mr. Reeves, your claims are serious. You may proceed with your opening statement." Keanu stood, picking up a thick, worn file from the table. He turned to the jury, 12 faces, all different, all watching him. His voice was steady, each word sharp. Clara Lopez lived in Carmel with her son Sam for 15 years, in the same house. That home was her family's legacy, every corner filled with their lives. But last year, Mr. Langston came. With fake documents, he erased Clara's deed, bulldozed her house, and built villas. I wrote warnings, sent letters, got no reply. I called, lines went dead. Now he says, misunderstanding. But this isn't a mistake, it's stealing a family's home. Keanu opened his file, pulling out a few papers. He held up a photo. Clara's house, an old snapshot. This was it a year ago, Sam's bike by the door. Flowers in the yard. He lowered it, then raised another, same spot. Now concrete villas. This is now on Clara's land. Whispers rose in the room. A man muttered, "How's that possible?" A woman nodded. Grayson shot up. "Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Reeves isn't a lawyer. He can't interpret these documents." The judge glanced at the file, pausing. "Overruled. Continue, Mr. Reeves." Keanu nodded, setting the file down, but the audience's question lingered. Why him? Where are the lawyers? There's 5 months ago. Keanu at his Carmel home, a stack of papers on the table, a pen in hand. Waves crashed outside his window. The clock ticked past midnight. A knock at the door. Clara, holding an envelope. "I found this," she said, her voice desperate. Keanu took it, an old deed, proof of Clara's home. "Did you show this to a lawyer?" he asked. Clara's eyes welled up. "I can't afford one." Keanu held the deed. Something stirred in him. But what? Courtroom conclusion. Keanu gave the jury one last look. "I'm here to speak for Clara, because if no one does, justice stays silent." He sat, hands clasped. The room was quiet, but the air had shifted. Judge Ellis jotted a note. Grayson fidgeted. Langston tensed. Outside, reporters grabbed their phones. Keanu takes over courtroom. The audience still wondered. Why no lawyer? The story was just beginning. Chapter 2. First Witness and Rising Tension. The atmosphere in the Monterey County Courtroom had thickened after Keanu Reeves' opening statement. The silence gave way to a low hum, spectators whispering, jurors glancing at their notes, reporters tapping out updates on their phones. Keanu sat at the plaintiff's table, his black leather jacket still sharp, his boots still under the table. His hazel eyes swept the room, calm, but resolute. Across from him, Richard Langston and Peter Grayson exchanged quick glances, murmuring as they strategized. Langston's gray suit remained impeccable, but a slight tremble in his fingers as he adjusted his tie betrayed a crack in his composure. Judge Margaret Ellis looked out over the crowd from the bench. "Mr. Reeves, you may call your witnesses," she said, her voice firm but tinged with curiosity about how far he'd take this. Keanu stood, his boots clicked softly on the wood floor as he picked up a sheet of paper. Turning to the room, he said in a steady, commanding tone, "I call Ellen Carter." The back doors swung open, and Ellen Carter stepped in, a woman in her 60s, with short white hair, clutching a small leather bag. A land expert with over 30 years in Monterey, she was known for her integrity. She walked to the witness stand, her steps sure, though her face showed a flicker of nerves. She took the oath and sat, her hands gripping her bag tightly as all eyes turned to her. Keanu approached, holding a copy of Clara's deed. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice low but clear, "you've been a land expert for years, right?" Ellen nodded. "Yes, 32 years. Keanu handed her the deed. "Is this Clara Lopez's title to her home?" Ellen took the paper, scanning it quickly. An old document, edges yellowed, but the seals intact. "Yes," she said. "This is the deed to the house Clara inherited from her father, recorded in 1998. Fully valid." Keanu pulled out another paper, newer, pristine. "And what's this?" Ellen frowned, taking it. She paused, then her voice hardened. "This is the title Langston Development submitted, but it's fake. They annexed Clara's land into their boundaries." A murmur rippled through the room, spectators exchanged looks. A woman whispered, "Fake?" A man nodded. One juror, a young woman, leaned forward. Ellen's words had hooked her. Keanu pressed, "How do you know?" Ellen replied, "The seals don't match. The coordinates contradict the original deed." This was deliberate. Her tone carried an edge of anger. Keanu nodded, "Thank you," and returned to his table. But Grayson leapt up. "Objection, Your Honor," he snapped, his voice sharp and cutting. "Miss Carter may be an expert, but Mr. Reeves' questions are leading. He's no lawyer to conduct this." Judge Ellis raised an eyebrow, looking from Grayson to Keanu. She tapped her pen lightly on the desk, then ruled, "Objection overruled. The questions are clear. The witness can answer. You may cross-examine, Mr. Grayson." Grayson straightened his tie and approached Ellen, a cold smile in his eyes. "Miss Carter," he began, 32 years is a long time. You've seen mistakes in titles before, right? Maps can get mixed up. Errors happen." Ellen stared him down. "Yes, but this isn't a mistake. It's intentional forgery." Grayson's smile faltered, but he pressed on. "That's your opinion. Do you have concrete proof?" Ellen shot back. "The documents speak for themselves. My job is to tell real from fake." Her voice was unwavering. Grayson muttered, "Thank you," but there was a hint of defeat in his tone. He sat, glancing at Langston. The man's face was flushed, his knuckles white as he gripped the table. Whispers grew louder. A journalist typed, "Keanu takes the lead." But the question lingered in the crowd's minds. Why him? Where are the lawyers? 4 months ago, Keanu sat in a Carmel Park, leather jacket on, a notebook in hand, his motorcycle parked nearby. Clara approached, holding a small box. "I found this among the stuff from the house," she said, handing it over. Keanu opened it. Inside was an old letter, handwritten by Clara's father. A note about the house's deed. "He kept this," Clara said, her voice shaky. Keanu read it, his eyes traced the lines, something stirring within him. "We can use this," he said low but firm. Clara asked, "But how?" Keanu didn't answer. He jotted something in his notebook, lost in thought. Courtroom continued. Judge Ellis asked, "Mr. Reeves, any more witnesses?" Keanu stood. "Yes, Your Honor, but first, let's hear Mr. Grayson's witness," he said, his tone calm yet tactical. The judge nodded. "Very well. Mr. Grayson, call your witness." Grayson rose, exuding forced confidence. "Thank you, Your Honor. I call James Holden." The doors opened, and James Holden entered. A man in his 40s, in a neat suit, a land engineer at Langston's company. He took the oath and sat as Grayson approached. "Miss Holden," Grayson said, "you work for Langston Development, correct?" Holden nodded. "Yes, 5 years," Grayson continued. "Did you see any forgery in the Clara Lopez land project?" Holden replied. "No, his voice steady. Everything was by the book. The room stirred. A man whispered, "Is he telling the truth?" Keanu sat at his table, hands clasped, watching Holden. His hazel eyes narrowed. He sensed something, but held back. One juror, an older man, frowned. Holden's ease didn't sit right with him. 3 months ago, Keanu sat in a Carmel beachside cafe, coffee in hand, leather jacket draped over his chair. Across from him, a man sat, eyes uneasy, hands in pockets. "I worked for Langston," he said, voice low, "but my conscience won't let me rest." Keanu asked, "Why?" The man pulled a paper from his pocket, a leaked plan, traces of Langston's fake title. "Take this," he said. "Clara's right." Keanu took it. His eyes scanned it, coffee set aside. "Thank you," he said. The man nodded and slipped away. Keanu pocketed the paper, a resolve settling in his expression. Courtroom conclusion. Grayson said, "Thank you, Mr. Holden," turning to the jury with a smile. "As you see, everything was legal." He sat, Langston's face relaxed, but only briefly. Keanu stood. "With your permission, Your Honor, I'd like to cross-examine," he said. The judge nodded. "Proceed." Keanu approached Holden. Slow steps, each one heavy with intent. "Mr. Holden," he said, voice calm but piercing. "Did you see Clara's house?" Holden replied, "Yes," but his eyes darted away. Keanu pulled the leaked plan from his pocket. "Is this your signature?" Holden froze. The room went silent. Breaths held. Spectators leaned forward. Tension peaked, all eyes on Keanu's next move. Chapter 4. Key Witness and Climax. The Monterey County Courtroom buzzed with electricity as it refilled after the 15-minute break. Spectators settled into the benches, whispering about Holden's cross-examination. Reporters clustered at the door, typing updates. Keanu sat at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped, calm but focused, as he watched the jury. Across from him, Richard Langston and Peter Grayson shuffled papers, plotting. Langston's face taut, Grayson's hand jittery on his pen. Mark Torres' testimony loomed large, and everyone braced for the closing arguments. Judge Margaret Ellis returned to the bench, banging her gavel, the crack echoing. "Order," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Mr. Reeves, you may call your witness." Keanu stood steps deliberate, grabbing a paper from the table. He turned to the room, voice clear, "I call Mark Torres." The doors opened and Mark Torres stepped in. 30s, dark-haired, in a worn work jacket, hands in pockets. A former Langston development worker, he'd been there when Clara's house came down. His conscience wouldn't let it go. He walked to the stand, steps hesitant but eyes resolute. He took the oath and sat as Keanu approached, a file in hand. "Mr. Torres," Keanu said, voice low but commanding, "you worked for Langston Development, right?" Torres nodded. "Yes. 2 years I was there when we tore down Clara Lopez's house." A ripple of murmurs, spectators glanced at each other. A woman whispered, "A witness?" Keanu pulled a paper from the file, the leaked plans copy. "Do you recognize this?" Torres looked, swallowed. "Yes, they told us to follow this plan." Keanu asked, "Was Clara's house on it?" Torres shook his head. "No, but we demolished it anyway." Whispers grew. One juror, a middle-aged man, leaned in, locked on Torres. Keanu pressed, "What were you told?" Torres said, "They said no issues, the land's ours, but I saw Clara crying holding her son." His voice cracked. Langston shifted, face paling. He hissed at Grayson. Keanu asked, "Who told you that?" Torres pointed at Langston. "Him and the supervisor." "Keep going," they said. The room froze, spectators held their breath. A journalist muttered, "This'll blow up." Grayson leapt up. "Objection, Your Honor. This witness isn't credible." A disgruntled ex-employee. Judge Ellis frowned, eyeing Torres. "Mr. Torres, why speak now?" Torres said, "My conscience wouldn't let me sleep. I heard Clara's son crying as we wrecked her home. I have to fix this." His voice steadied. The judge ruled. Objection overruled. "Continue, Mr. Reeves." Keanu turned to Torres. "Did they show you a fake title?" Torres nodded. "Yes," they said. "It's all legal, but I had doubts." Keanu pulled another paper, Clara's original deed. Do you know this one? Torres looked. No, we never saw that. Keanu faced the jury. Clara's house was on this deed, but Langston hid it. The room erupted in whispers. Jurors exchanged looks. A woman frowned. A man took notes. Langston's face turned purple. He barked at Grayson, whose hands shook. Keanu said, "One last thing, Mr. Torres. Why come to me?" Torres replied, "I saw you with Clara. I knew you wanted to help. I trust you." Keanu nodded, "Thank you," and returned to his table. Grayson stood, approaching Torres, voice tight but controlled. "Mr. Torres, were you fired?" Torres said, "No, I quit." Grayson pressed, "You're mad at Langston, right? This a grudge?" Torres shot back, "No, this is the truth." Grayson sneered. "Who paid you?" Torres said, "No one. My conscience brought me here." Grayson turned to the jury. "This witness is unreliable. His words aren't proof," but his voice wavered. One juror, an older man, nodded. Torres' sincerity struck him. A spectator whispered, "This changes everything." A shift was palpable. Keanu sat calm, watching Grayson and Langston. Torres' words had landed like a bomb. Everyone awaited the fallout. A month ago, Keanu sat in a caramel bar, coffee on the table, Clara's deed in front of him. A man sat across, Mark Torres, jacket frayed, hands on the table. "I saw you with Clara," he said, voice low. "You're helping her, right?" Keanu looked up. "Yes." "Why?" Torres pulled out the leaked plan. "Take this." "Clara's right." Keanu took it, eyes scanning, coffee set aside. "Why do this?" he asked. Torres said, "I can't forget her son crying," stood, and left. Keanu held the paper, resolve hardening. Conclusion. Judge Ellis asked, "Mr. Reeves, more witnesses?" Keanu stood. "No, Your Honor, our evidence rests here for now," he said, calm but firm. The judge turned to Grayson. "Ready for closing arguments?" Grayson stammered. "We need time, Your Honor." She nodded. "Recess until tomorrow," she said, banging the gavel. The room exploded, spectators surged, reporters bolted. Keanu drops bombshell witness. Keanu sat hands clasped, glancing at Langston. Langston raged at Grayson. The lawyer's face collapsed. Jurors filed out, whispering. Torres' words stuck with them. The question lingered, "Why Keanu?" But the answer neared. Tension at its peak. Chapter 3, Cross-Examination and Escalating Tension. The Monterey County Courtroom crackled with tension after Keanu Reeves' last question to James Holden. "Is this your signature?" hung in the air, the room holding its breath. Keanu stood a few steps from the plaintiff's table, eyes locked on Holden. The leaked plan in his hand, a silent accusation. Spectators leaned in, jurors fixed on the witness. Everyone awaited an answer. James Holden sat frozen on the stand, 40s, suit slightly wrinkled, a thin sheen of sweat on his brow. I don't know," he stammered, voice shaky, eyes flicking from the paper to Grayson. Grayson shot up, yanking at his tie. "Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Reeves is intimidating the witness. This is harassment." Judge Margaret Ellis raised an eyebrow, lowering her glasses to glance at Keanu, then Grayson. "Objection overruled," she said, voice firm but even. "Mr. Reeves asked a question. The witness will answer." "Continue." Grayson sat, face flushed. He whispered something to Langston, whose grip on the table turned his knuckles white. Keanu stepped closer to Holden. Voice low, cutting, "Mr. Holden, have you seen this plan before?" Holden gave a faint nod. "Maybe, among company files," he said, his voice fading. Keanu set the paper on the table, hands slipping into his pockets, his calm unnerving Holden further. "Okay," Keanu said slowly. "Can you explain how Clara Lopez's land got added to this plan?" Holden swallowed hard. The room was dead silent. Spectators and jurors riveted. I'm just an engineer," he mumbled. "I don't handle titles." Keanu paused, then pressed, "But your signature's on this plan." "Why?" Holden shifted in his seat. "I don't know. A mistake, maybe," he said, voice barely audible. A murmur swept the room. A man whispered, "He's lying." A woman nodded. One juror, an older man, scowled. Holden's evasions grated on him. Keanu picked up the paper, turning to the jury. This plan has no trace of Clara's house, just villas. Mr. Holden signed it, but he doesn't remember. His voice was steady, each word a hammer blow. The documents on the table a stark truth. Grayson jumped up again, voice sharp with anger. Your Honor, this is an accusation. You can't let Mr. Reeves corner the witness. The judge snapped. Quiet, Mr. Grayson, banging her gavel, the sound reverberating. Mr. Reeves' questions are valid. The witness will respond. Grayson sat, fidgeting. Langston's glare locked on Keanu. Keanu turned back to Holden. One last question. When Langston had you sign this, did you know about Clara's house? Holden croaked. No, but his voice trembled. Eyes dropped, hands clenched in his lap. Keanu went silent, stepped back, returned to his table. No further questions. Your Honor, he said, sitting and clasping his hands. Whispers swelled. A journalist typed. Keanu breaks witness. Judge Ellis asked. Mr. Grayson, care to redirect? Grayson stood, approaching Holden, voice forced into calm. Mr. Holden, relax. Everything at Langston Development was legal, right? Holden nodded. Yes, it should be, but his tone lacked conviction. Grayson pressed. Could your signature on that plan be a mistake? Holden sees it. Maybe, he said quickly, grasping for relief. Grayson turned to the jury. See? No forgery, just a mix-up, he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. One juror, a young woman, frowned. Holden's answers didn't sway her. A spectator muttered, that's weak. Doubt rippled through the room. Keanu sat still, calm, watching Holden and Grayson. He'd sensed something. His cards weren't all on the table yet. The judge asked, Mr. Reeves, more witnesses? Keanu stood. Yes, Your Honor. But I'd like a recess first, he said, evenly. She nodded. 15-minute break, she declared, banging the gavel. The room erupted. Spectators buzzed. Reporters dashed out. Keanu corners witness. Keanu sat, hands clasped, casting a brief glance at Langston. Langston hissed something furious at Grayson. The lawyer's face fell. Jurors exchanged looks. Holden's shaky responses lingered in their minds. The question still burned. Why Keanu? Where are the lawyers? But the tension had spiked. Everyone awaited the next move. 2 months ago, Keanu rode slowly down a Carmel coastal road, wind soughing his hair, motorcycle humming. He stopped at a construction site, Clara's old home, now sprouting villas. A worker with a hard hat approached. What are you doing here? Keanu asked. Who owned this house? The worker hesitated, then muttered, Clara, but they told us no problem. Keanu nodded, leaning on his bike, eyes on the villas. Something clicked. Chapter 5, Closing and Verdict. The Monterey County Courtroom brimmed with the previous night's excitement. As the new day dawned, benches overflowed, spectators buzzed, reporters hovered at the doors for breaking news. Keanu sat at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped, gazing calmly at the jury. Across from him, Richard Langston and Peter Grayson rifled through papers. Langston pale, Grayson's hands trembling. Mark Torres's testimony had shaken the room, and now all eyes were on the closing arguments. Judge Margaret Ellis took the bench, banging her gavel. The crack rang out. Order, she said, adjusting her glasses. Mr. Reeves, your closing statement. Keanu stood, steps sure, grabbing a few papers. He faced the jury, 12 pairs of eyes locked on him. Some scribbling, some waiting. Clara Lopez, Keanu began, voice low but resonant, lived in Carmel with her son Sam for 15 years, in the same house. That home was her family's inheritance. Every inch built with their lives. Then Miss Langston came. With fake papers he erased Clara's deed, demolished her house, and built villas. He ignored my warnings, shredded my letters, hung up my calls. I saw Clara's tears. Someone had to speak. And that's me. Keanu held up the papers. Clara's deed? The leaked plan. This deed proves Clara's right. This plan shows Langston's fraud. Ellen Carter confirmed the forgery. Mark Torres told the truth. Clara's home was stolen on purpose. Miss Grayson calls it a misunderstanding, but it's not a mistake. It's destroying a family's life. He stepped closer to the jury, voice rising, yet steady. I'm no lawyer, I'm Clara's voice. I lived her story. I had to tell it. Justice comes from choosing what's right. Give Clara her home back. A hush fell. Jurors glanced at each other. A woman looked away. A man nodded. Keanu returned to his table, sat, hands clasped. Spectators whispered. A journalist typed, Keanu lands it. Judge Ellis said, Mr. Grayson, your turn. Grayson stood, straightened his tie, hands shaky. He faced the jury, voice forced with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Reeves tells a moving story, but law runs on facts, not feelings. Langston Development is a reputable firm. Titles can get mixed up, mistakes happen. Ellen Carter gave an opinion. Mark Torres is a bitter ex-employee. They're not reliable. Mr. Reeves isn't a lawyer. He can't interpret documents. This isn't fraud, it's a mix-up. Justice leaves no room for doubt. Find Langston not guilty. Grayson sat, glanced at Langston, whose eyes stayed down. One juror, a young woman, frowned. Grayson's words felt flimsy. A murmur rose. A man muttered, That's a defense? The judge said, Jury, you may deliberate, banging her gavel. The jurors filed out, whispering, some glancing at Keanu. Hours passed. The room stayed full, spectators waiting, reporters piling up outside. Keanu sat, calm, but his hands gripped the table tightly. Langston argued heatedly with Grayson. The lawyer's face crumpled. Finally, the jury returned. Silence fell. Breaths held. The judge asked, Your verdict? The foreman, a middle-aged man, stood. We find for the plaintiff, Clara Lopez, Langston Development is guilty. The room erupted, spectators jumped up, applause and whispers mixing. Langston's slumped face ashen. Grayson dropped his papers. Judge Ellis shouted, Order, banging her gavel. Miss Langston, you'll return Clara Lopez's home and pay damages. Details in the written ruling, she said, closing her file. Keanu stood. Clara rushed from the back, hugging him. Thank you, she said, voice breaking. Keanu replied, Justice demanded it, calm but sincere. Reporters dashed out. Keanu wins. The crowd still asked, Why no lawyer? But now it was clear. Keanu had fought for Clara, and he'd won. Keanu left with Clara. Outside, reporters swarmed. Why no attorney? He paused. I had to defend Clara's right, he said, pushing through. Langston stormed off, bickering with Grayson. The room emptied, but the echoes lingered. Justice prevailed. Keanu's quiet strength had changed everything. Chapter 6. An Evening at Home. The small Carmel house's kitchen glowed with warm light. An old lamp hung on the wall. A simple cloth draped the table, steam rising from a pot on the stove. Months had passed since the courtroom victory. Clara Lopez and her son Sam had reclaimed their home. Langston's villas were torn down, the land restored to Clara, the garden slowly reviving. Tonight, 3 plates sat on the table for Clara, Sam, and Keanu. Keanu sat at one end, hands clasped, a faint smile as he watched Clara stir the pot. I might have overcooked the spaghetti, Clara said, laughing. Her voice carried relief. Peace after so long. Sam, at the other end, scribbled on a paper, his pencil darting fast. No big deal, Keanu said. I'm not much of a cook myself. Clara chuckled, bringing the pot over, dishing out spaghetti, topping it with sauce. They ate, forks clinked. Sam hummed now and then. A quiet moment. Clara said, I still don't get it. Looking at Keanu, why no lawyer? Everyone's asking. Keanu set his fork down, thought a moment, then said calmly, Your story was mine to tell. No one else saw those tears. Clara's eyes welled, but she smiled. Glad you did it. Sam looked up. Keanu, is your motorcycle still here? He asked, eyes bright. Keanu laughed, a rare, warm sound. Yeah, in the garage. We'll ride tomorrow. Sam grinned. Promise? Waving his fork. Promise, Keanu said, nodding. Clara teased. My son thinks you're a hero. Keanu shrugged. Not a hero, just someone who had to speak. His voice low but genuine. Dinner ended. Plates sat stacked. Sam handed Keanu his drawing. Look, it's you. A motorcycle. And rider childlike, but heartfelt. Keanu took it, smiled. Nice work, Sam. Clara stood, gathering dishes. You gave us this back. Everything, she said softly. Keanu looked up. You already deserved it, he replied evenly. The kitchen lamp flickered. Waves murmured outside. Keanu leaned back. This small moment with Clara and Sam felt more real than the courtroom chaos. The house was a home again, and he'd made it happen.